Welcome back to my channel, guys. This week I have with me my beautiful mother. We are going to be talking about storing up riches in heaven versus storing them up on earth. This is also going to be a part of Upstream's podcast, so you can see it in both places. Okay. Matthew 6:19-21. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Oh. So I have some questions for you, Mom. Oh. What do you think our society sees as treasures on earth? Because I want, if we're going to be talking about, I think, we talk about treasures on earth and not storing them up because we should store up riches in heaven, but we don't always think about what riches we look for on earth and which ones do we store up in heaven, if that makes sense.
Yes. And I think naturally we could think it just means physical things. Maybe we think initially it's a Porsche or a certain type of purse or things that are, fancy or something. Right. I think that's what we would naturally think is if, don't store up all those things. But I think it can be more broad than that. Yes, of course, it's saying don't make it that your focus, right? You don't want to have your entire focus be things. But I think it can also be, what we value here. And that doesn't even necessarily mean physical things.
Right.
It could mean...
Do you have any examples?
Yeah, it could mean titles or, the way that people see us or,
right.
Just things that maybe aren't as tangible.
Yeah, that's interesting because we talked about that at the end and I didn't even think about that.
Oh, really?
I was totally just thinking about physical things, but
yeah,
that's a cool way to look at it.
Yeah, and I think that we can kind of fool ourselves sometimes by thinking I don't store up treasures in heaven because
right.
I don't have a Porsche or
right.
I don't have a this or a that. But if we're storing up things that, are, even, not as
right.
physical and obvious, those are things that
right.
we're going to lose too,
right.
because even think of people, we were talking the other day in the car, we were talking about how Bieber is going to be internationally known forever or something, mm-hmm. right? And how he's kind of an icon now, whereas Michael Jackson was the icon when I was growing
right.
up, and he still is.
Right.
But then there's kids that don't even know who Michael Jackson is.
Right. I think it's in Psalms. I think it's the one that we didn't use, but Psalms 49 literally talks about how we, as people, will make our name, we'll name land after ourselves, we'll make buildings after ourselves, we'll make all these things after ourselves just for us to die and, be in the grave for the rest of your life. And it's, it kind of hits hard. You spend your whole life trying to, make a name for yourself just to, die. And then, 50 years later, no one even knows who you are.
Yeah, totally. Dad and I were talking the other day just about our legacy and, what is our hope for generations that come, because it's I even look at my own family, genealogy, and I think, what kind of impact did the people that were before me in my own family, what
right.
kind of impact did they make? And you really hope that your life makes an impact that's going to be remembered a long time from now. And that's generally not going to come from things
right.
and stuff,
Right.
But also, yeah, I feel it definitely can be way more broad than just physical stuff.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, that's what I was thinking about earlier too, is I think when you first think am I, if you ask yourself, am I storing up riches on earth? It's easy to be prideful and be no, because I don't have fancy cars or I don't have a mansion, but it's also you don't have the money to have the capability of doing that. So it's how are you scaling your own money? Are you still someone's treasure on earth could be a Porsche because they could afford that. But for me, it could be a really nice toaster that I don't need.
A really nice toaster. No, I totally know what you mean.
I think I could afford.
Yeah, it's a perspective thing because in our minds, maybe a certain item or a certain style of house or a certain this or certain that would be what we would strive to
right.
to achieve or to store up or to have. But maybe somebody in Haiti, what they would really want would be 3 square meals a day,
Right.
So it really does come down to perspective and I think what our actual focus is, you know, because I don't think it's wrong to have things, but I think that we should always be considering what am I doing with what I have, you know?
Okay. So then how do you think if those are treasures on earth, why do you think we seek them? Why do you think that we are so, like, why do we pursue the things that we're pursuing?
You know, I would say like for myself, like I can't speak for anybody else, but I would say for myself, you know, I think like we obviously all have a God-sized void in our life. And I think that if we're not really intentionally filling that with him, it makes room and space for us to be filling it with other things.
Right.
And so for me, you know, like if I'm feeling discontent because like there's some, I want this instead of this, or I want more of this, or I want this kind of security or whatever, it for me, again, I can't speak for everyone else, but for me, it's like, oh, like my focus isn't in the right place.
Right.
And it reminds me like the verse that I sent you guys yesterday in 2 Corinthians where it says like God's able like to meet our needs abundantly so that we can abound in every good work. And I think so many times like,
over it well.
yeah. And like, what are we going to do with it? Like, what's the purpose in our favor? And I think so many times like we're just focused on getting stuff to make us feel better, to fill a void, to, you know, help our self-esteem or to help our security or our comfort or whatever.
Right.
When really like at the end of the day, none of that stuff is going to fully satisfy.
Yeah. And I think we can all be guilty of that too. Like if
for sure.
Sometimes like our first instinct, like when we're sad or like feeling like lonely or whatever, it's like, how about we like get out of the house and like go do something?
Or go
like,
get a mangonada.
Right. Or go get like a burrito. But like that's just temporary satisfaction. Like in that moment, you'll be like, okay, like that was cool. I got a burrito, but like I'm still sad.
Burrito. Bean and cheese for you, right?
Right. But you know, like you're trying to fill a void that only God can fill. And I think we were talking about that at a small group last night too. Someone was saying like, if you're going through something and you go to seek counsel from a non-believer versus a believer, like if you came to me and you're like, I'm struggling with this, I'd be like go to Jesus, you know? But like if you're talking to a non-believer, like they'd be like, it's okay, like you'll be fine, like go get a makeover or something. Like all that they have to offer you is like hopelessness because like they don't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. They don't have the full answer, you know?
Right.
Because those things like, you know, like when I'm feeling really crappy, a makeover sounds amazing. But the problem is that after my makeover's done, I'm still going to have that same thing that I'm struggling with.
Right. It's just more like putting your feelings on pause for a second and just have to deal with them later.
Yeah.
I was thinking like we seek treasures on earth too, like if we're not thinking physical, like also for a certain status, like we're seeking because like we just want to appear better to our friends or feel better. I mean, like appear better to like our community. And I was even talking to like Ben, like sometimes when you start like getting involved in the church or like working in the church, you have to like ask yourself, like, what's my motive? Mm-hmm. Like, is my motive that I want to like serve God and serve the church because God served the church? I mean, Jesus served the church, or because like I want to appear as a good Christian to people around me, you know? Mm. So I think that like we do a lot of like, I think like lately I've just been like trying to like figure out like what is my motive in things. Cause I think it is easy. Like, who is the guy that you had on here? Boulder Faith?
Blake.
Yeah, like he said, I feel like that is so convicting. Like sometimes we find our identity more in Christianity than we do in Jesus. And I think that like when you are raised in the church, grew up in the church, like whatever, everything's so ingrained in you that you could like just be like emptily, like just empty, like saying like, oh yeah, I believe in God, like I trust him, but like do you actually?
Yeah, but like where's the fruit of that? Kind of like what Chocolate Bear was saying. That just sounds funny to say. Kind of what Chocolate Bear was saying on Sunday is that, you know, what's actually going down in like the secret places of our life and the time that we're actually spending with God in the secret places of our life and in our time, like that shows like the real fruit. And that's not something anyone else is seeing, you know, like they might see the outward expression of the fruit of what you're dealing with beyond, you know, behind closed doors with Jesus.
I had to get rid of it so bad. I thought it would be quiet.
That was not in the secret place.
What practical things come to mind that we can do for God's kingdom? I like this one a lot, if I can say something first.
Yeah, go for it.
I think like a lot of the times we ask God, like, what is your will? Like, show me your will. Or God, I'm just waiting on for you the next, like, oh, I'm so tongue tied today.
Waiting for the next step.
He's just waiting on us to take like the next step. Because we just keep calling God like, what's your will for me? Like, I just want to do your will, God. Like, show me what you have next for me. But like he puts it in the Bible all over like what his will is. Like feed the hungry, serve the poor, help the widows, like all of that stuff. So I think that like God does have certain calls for your life. Like your call for life is going to look way different than mine. But at the end of the day, like instead of just like waiting, like God, like in 5 years and 2 years and 10 years, because like I see like so fast, like time goes by so fast. I'm like, what did I even do in the last 6 months? Like, because you just like sit there waiting for the next step. But he like tells you like, in the Bible, like what things we can be doing. So I think like things that we do for God's kingdom is like the same, like things that we do on earth will help.
Yeah, and that's like a way of storing up treasures in heaven.
Right.
Because like the greatest treasure that we can store up is leading other people to heaven, right? And like what are we doing in our lives to do that? Like that's a convicting thing for me, I think, because, and I'm sure it's similar for you growing up in the church and us being like in the church with our family forever, is you're kind of surrounded with the church and churchy people. And I think a lot of times, you know, like, okay, cool. Yes, we feed the poor. Okay, cool. Yes, we're doing this. We're doing this.
But like, who are we leading to Jesus?
Yeah, exactly. And I know like there's probably fringe things that are happening, like where other people that we're leading are doing that. But like, what about myself? Like, what about my own life? Like,
well, that is scary because like I'm 19. Like, I've been a believer, like, as long as I can remember. And then I think, like, how many people have I led to Jesus? You know, like, you have those conversations and you have no idea, like, years from now, like, in their quiet place, what happens. But, like, even just, like, right now, like, who am I discipling? Like, who am I walking with? But it's, like, hard, too, you know? Like you said, like, you go to church, you go to small group, you, like, are in the church and you feel fueled up because you're, like, listening to God's word. You're around other Christians.
Right.
And you're like, oh, we're all the same. And then you, like, get outside the church walls and you're like, no one loves Jesus. Like, you, like, you're surrounded by people that, like, don't know about heaven, and that's super scary. Like, just like going through your day, like thinking about how many people, like if you just woke up and your mission was like to let people know about heaven, Jesus. I feel like life would look a lot different. But like that's convicting for myself too. Yeah, like I don't do that. But like I tell Ben, I'm like, I don't even know how. Like, how do you just like go up to a stranger and be like, do you think you're going to hell or heaven? Like, I don't know. Like, how do you just start that conversation? I don't know.
I think it needs to be organic. Like, I think, you know, I know that there's some people that will have their own way of doing it. For me, I feel like just the way that I treat people, I feel like they can see Jesus in that. Me too. But I don't think that lets us off the hook that we're not supposed to say something, you know? And it's like, I was talking to Dad the other day. I'm like, you know, with my own, like, we'll just talk about social media, right? Like, you have a big platform. Your little sister has a big platform. We have a small one compared to you guys, but a bigger one than a lot of other people. And there's this, like, responsibility in that where I told him, I said, you know, I really feel like I need to really evaluate what I'm putting out there because, like, I want people to, when they come to anything that is related to us on social media, like I want them to first and foremost know that we love Jesus and then know that we love our family and that we're working on our marriages and, you know, and that the other stuff is like, oh, they also have great skin or whatever, you know, like things that don't matter in the grand scheme of life. Right.
And I think too, like it's easy to like get caught up in numbers, but it's just like, say you guys have 20 views on your podcast, but you have 20 views every single video. That's like, those 20 views must be like repetitive. Like if you could just pour into those people that are like listening and want to hear, like, I don't think God looks at like, did you lead 500 people to Christ or 1,000? Like, I think he just like looks at like what you're actually like doing to try to do that. Because, like, God calls us all to different things, like, pastors. Like, they bring, like, 20 people to Jesus, like, every Sunday if they do an altar call. But, like, we're not in those positions, you know? So, I don't know. Like, God obviously expects us to bring people to Jesus, but I don't know if he, like, is going to, like, get to heaven and be like, you only brought 10. You didn't bring me 100.
No, I don't think so. I think that what really counts is our heart and recognizing, okay, who am I discipling? Like, who am I, you know, and how am I using the platform that I've been given? How am I using the voice that I've been given, the life that I've been given to, and maybe it doesn't necessarily mean like I talk to this person and they say this prayer and now they are going to heaven. I think it can also be, I live my life in such a way that these people ask, oh, like, that's different. And it causes them to seek Jesus, and right? Honestly, because then he gets the glory when they're coming to him, it's about him and them and not me.
Okay, guys. So Ben edited this to be a little highlight for my YouTube channel, but the full version is going to be on the Upstream YouTube channel. So if you want somewhere. So if you want to have more in depth about what we're talking about, you can find it there. Thank you for coming out to our channel, and we've loved talking to you guys. I love always talking to my mom. You know, she's got some good wisdom. So
do you, girl.
I knew that this would be a good topic to talk about. So we would just encourage you guys to do some self-reflection.
We are going to too.
Right. Yeah. I think that every time we do these videos, I just want you guys to know, especially for myself, like, I don't come from a point of like trying to sound better than anyone. Like I literally do these because it's like something that we all struggle with ourselves. And I think that we need to talk about it and share it. So we do not come from a spot at all saying that
like we've mastered it.
We've mastered it and we have so many crowns in heaven and you guys don't. Like that's not our point at all. But I would encourage you guys to do some self-reflection, us too. Think about like things that you're stirring up on earth that maybe you need to let go so that you can have more of an eternal perspective. My mom is going to finish us out of here.
You want me to
My mom is going to finish up this video with a scripture.
Okie dokie. So 1 Corinthians 1, verses 26 to 31. Brothers and sisters, think of what you were when you were called. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were influential. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. God chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things and the things that are not to nullify the things that are, that no one may boast before him. It is because of him that you are in Christ Jesus, who has become for us wisdom from God. That is our righteousness, holiness, and redemption. Therefore, as it is written, let the one who boasts boast in the Lord.
So that's all we have for you guys. We love you. Go check out my videos and go check out Upstream's videos.